Some boundaries exist not to contain the dangerous, but to protect the foolish from their own ambitions. The Convergence Assembly occupied a crystalline megastructure suspended between three dying stars, home to representatives from 912 sentient species who had learned, over millennia, the delicate art of coexistence through compromise. They breathed different atmospheres, occupied different dimensions of perception, and subscribed to vastly different moral philosophies. Yet they had agreed upon one fundamental principle: power must be restrained, weapons must be limited, and warfare must be conducted with honor. All except one species had signed these accords. Ambassador Vrektel of the Kronar Dominion rose on his six segmented legs, mandibles clicking with barely concealed excitement as he addressed the chamber for the first time. The Kronar had joined the assembly only 15 cycles prior. After their rapid expansion through 60 star systems, had caught the attention of elder species who preferred to negotiate before circumstances forced more aggressive intervention. The Kronar were warriors, proud and fierce, accustomed to taking what they desired and dismissing what they could not immediately understand. Honored delegates, Vrektel began, his voice translated into 911 different sensory modalities simultaneously. My people have studied your territorial maps with great interest. We have noted an irregularity that troubles our strategic planners. Elder Witness Thalmora, a silicon-based consciousness that had observed galactic politics for 18,000 years, shifted her crystalline mass with the patience of mountains. She recognized the familiar cadence of this conversation, had heard variations of it from 54 different species over the centuries. Vrektel projected a holographic star chart into the center of the chamber, highlighting a massive void in the territorial claims. Hundreds of systems, marked only with warning symbols in languages most species no longer spoke. This region, designated Exclusion Zone 7 in your records, remains unclaimed by any member species, Vrektel continued, his confidence building with each word. No trade routes traverse it. No colonies exist within it. No representative speaks for it in this assembly. The Kronar Dominion views such waste as unconscionable. We formally request permission to establish settlements in this territory. The chamber fell into the particular quality of silence that precedes catastrophe. That territory is not empty, Ambassador, Thalmora said, her harmonics resonating with something that might have been sorrow or perhaps warning. It is occupied. Vrektel's mandibles spread in what his species considered a smile. By whom? I see no delegation, no territorial markers, no designation of sovereignty. By humans, Thalmora replied simply. The word rippled through the assembly like a stone dropped into still water. Some delegates activated privacy fields. Others made sounds of discomfort in frequencies ranging from subsonic to ultraviolet. The younger species leaned forward with curiosity while the ancient ones turned away. Humans. Vrektel tasted the word, finding it strange on his translator. I have encountered no reference to this species in our intelligence briefings. Are they numerous, technologically advanced? Both, an older delegate whispered from somewhere in the shadows. And worse. Vrektel's posture straightened with the particular arrogance of those who have never truly been defeated. Then why do 912 species avoid them? The Kronar have conquered civilizations with superior numbers. We fear nothing in this galaxy. Thalmora moved closer to the Kronar ambassador, her presence radiating something that translated across all sensory spectrums as deep, abiding regret. 900 years ago, she began, her voice carrying the weight of living memory, humanity achieved faster than light travel. They were young, aggressive, brilliant in ways we found both fascinating and deeply disturbing. We welcomed them, as we welcome all emerging species. We invited them to join the assembly, to embrace our conventions, to benefit from millennia of accumulated wisdom. She paused, and in that pause lay centuries of consequence. They refused to disarm, Thalmora continued. We require all member species to limit their military capabilities, to observe restrictions on certain technologies, to conduct warfare, when unavoidable, with restraint and honor. Humans examined our requirements and called them naive. They argued that any civilization that voluntarily limited its defensive capabilities would eventually fall to one that did not. They insisted on keeping every weapon, every technology, every ruthless methodology they had developed. Then you should have forced compliance, Vraktel said, his mandibles clicking with derision. Surely the combined might of the assembly could have civilized one primitive species. Thalmora's crystalline body dimmed, as if the memory alone drained her radiance. 63 species tried, Ambassador. They formed a coalition to quarantine humanity, to compel acceptance of our standards through overwhelming force. The operation was called the Unification Campaign. It lasted 9 years. She displayed archival footage, fleets of ships, vast beyond comprehension, assembled from species who had never before cooperated on such scale, all united in their certainty that one upstart civilization could not stand against the established order. Humanity lost billions, Thalmara said quietly. 7 of those 63 species no longer exist. 14 more suffered casualties so catastrophic they required centuries to recover. 22 experienced damage to their home systems from which they have never fully healed. And humanity never surrendered. Vrechtel stared at the evidence, his tactical mind struggling to reconcile the mathematics of such an outcome. The Treaty of Saturn was our salvation, Thalmara continued. Humanity agreed to complete isolation. They would claim a designated region of space and never leave it. In exchange, we agreed never to enter their territory, never to contact them, and never to discuss them with emerging species. We told ourselves we had contained them, imprisoned them for their own good and ours. But the truth, Vrechtel asked, suddenly less certain. The truth is they wanted isolation. They asked only to be left alone with their own philosophies, their own methods, their own destiny. We gave them what they wanted while pretending we had won. And Ambassador, that was 900 years ago. 9 centuries of isolation. 9 centuries to develop their technology without our restrictions. 9 centuries to prepare. Captain Shelvara, Vrechtel's military advisor, stepped forward. She was smaller than the ambassador, but covered in scars that told stories of survival through impossible odds. Elder witness, respectfully, 900 years is a long time. Species change. Technology plateaus. Perhaps these humans are not the threat they once were. Perhaps they have stagnated in their isolation, or destroyed themselves, or simply faded. Thalmara's response carried the resonance of absolute certainty. That possibility terrifies me more than any alternative. The assembly debated for 3 full cycles. The younger species, particularly those like the Kronar who had achieved power through conquest rather than diplomacy, argued that avoiding an entire region of space based on ancient history was cowardice. The elder species who remembered urged caution, but their warnings sounded like the fearful stories told to children, not the sober assessments of military reality. Vrechtel left the assembly chamber with his ambition undimmed. He had planted doubt, and doubt would grow into opportunity. 6 weeks later, Vrechtel stood on the bridge of the warship Endless Conquest, surrounded by 249 additional Kronar vessels, the largest military formation his people had assembled in 3 generations. Each ship bristled with weapons capable of glassing continents. Their shields could withstand sustained bombardment from fusion weapons. Their crews had trained for this moment, studied the limited information available about human technology, and concluded that superior numbers and determination would prevail. Ambassador, Captain Shelvara said from her station, her voice tight with concern, the Assembly specifically voted against this expedition. The Assembly voted for nothing, Vrechtel corrected. They could not reach consensus, which means we are free to act. Besides, we are not invading. We are merely investigating, confirming whether these legendary humans even exist. Shelvara said nothing, but her claws tightened on a command station. The fleet crossed the boundary into the exclusion zone, passing automated warning beacons that broadcast in dozens of languages. Turn back. Death awaits those who proceed. They do not forgive. They do not forget. Vrechtel laughed at the melodrama of it. They penetrated 40 light years into human space before finding signs of habitation. A yellow star with 9 planets, the third one surrounded by massive orbital structures and teeming with energy signatures. Life signs, Vrechtel demanded. Approximately 15 billion individuals on the primary planet and associated structures, the sensor officer reported. Technology appears inconsistent. Their power generation is less efficient than ours. Their faster-than-light drives are slower, but their communication networks are extraordinarily dense, and I'm detecting energy signatures I cannot identify. 15 billion, Vrechtel said thoughtfully. The Kronar home system alone contains 90 billion. These humans are fewer than the story suggested. Helm, take us into orbital position. Battle formation. Let them see our strength. As the Kronar fleet moved toward Earth, a single ship appeared on their sensors, small compared to their dreadnoughts, angular and aggressive, covered in what looked like weapon ports. One ship, Vrechtel said. They send one ship to meet 250 vessels. Admirable courage or incomprehensible stupidity. The human ship stopped several thousand kilometers away. A communication request came through. The holographic display showed a human female, dark hair pulled back from her face, brown skin, and eyes that seemed to look through the display directly into Vrechtel's soul. She wore a military uniform of dark blue with silver insignia. "I am Commander Rachel Harper of the United Earth Defense Force," she said, her voice cold and precise. "You have violated the Treaty of Saturn. You have entered human space without authorization. You have one opportunity to leave peacefully. Turn your ships around and exit our territory immediately. You have 60 minutes. Vrechtel stared at her, then his mandibles clicked with laughter. "You dare issue ultimatums. I command 250 warships, each capable of destroying your orbital infrastructure. You have one outdated destroyer. Choose your next words carefully, human." Harper's expression did not change. 59 minutes. "Listen to me carefully," Vrechtel said, his voice hardening. "Your species has hidden for 9 centuries while the galaxy evolved beyond you. New powers have risen. The Kronar Dominion alone controls more territory than humanity ever claimed. We came here to offer you a choice. Join the modern galaxy under our protection and prosper, or refuse and be swept aside by history." 58 minutes, Harper said. "I will not repeat myself." Vrechtel turned to his weapons officer. "Target one of those orbital platforms, the one at coordinate 772. Destroy it." "Sir, that's not," Captain Shelvara began. "Do it," Vrechtel commanded. One of the Kronar dreadnoughts fired. A beam of concentrated plasma struck the orbital platform, and for a moment its shields held before collapsing. The structure exploded brilliantly, debris scattering into space. Vrechtel turned back to Harper, expecting fear or at least hesitation. Instead, her calm expression had transformed into something cold and absolute. "That platform was not abandoned," she said quietly. "It was a memorial. 400 people died there in an accident 3 centuries ago. We maintained it as a grave. You just desecrated the resting place of 400 souls." Vrechtel started, but Harper continued. "You came here with your fleet to intimidate us. You came here believing old stories were exaggerations. You came here thinking we would submit to superior numbers." She leaned forward. "Ambassador Vrechtel of the Kronar Dominion, you have made 3 mistakes today. First, you entered our space. Second, you threatened us. Third, you fired a weapon in our system. You have declared war on humanity. May whatever gods you worship have mercy on you, because we will not." The transmission ended. For 3 heartbeats, the bridge of endless conquest was silent. Then Captain Shelvara screamed, "All ships, battle stations, raise shields, power weapons." The sensor displays ignited like stars being born. Ships appeared on every screen, not dozens, not hundreds, but thousands of vessels materializing from empty space, surrounding the Kronar fleet in a perfect sphere. They had been there all along, invisible, waiting. "Where did they come from?" Vrechtel whispered. "Stealth technology beyond anything in our databases," the sensor officer said, his voice shaking. "They've been watching us since we crossed the boundary. Sir, I'm counting. 4,732 vessels. They were always here." Captain Shelvara looked at her screens and felt something she had never experienced before: the absolute certainty of death. The battle lasted 11 hours. The Kronar fought with courage born of desperation, with tactics refined through generations of conquest, with weapons they had believed represented the pinnacle of military technology. They were wrong about everything. Human ships moved at speeds that should have liquefied their crews. Human weapons, relativistic kill vehicles accelerated to near-light speed, antimatter warheads banned by every galactic convention, directed energy weapons that simply erased shields from existence, dismantled the Kronar fleet with surgical precision. When Kronar ships tried to flee, humans were already positioned along every escape vector. When Kronar vessels attempted to hack human systems, superior artificial intelligence rewrote their own code in seconds, turning Kronar ships against each other. When the Kronar formed defensive positions, human weapons struck from angles that should have been impossible. By hour 8, only 73 Kronar ships remained. Vrechtel sat on the floor of his bridge, his proud mandibles slack with shock. Captain Shelvara, wounded and weary, refused medical attention, determined to witness what her crew endured. Commander Harper appeared on their screens again. "Captain Shelvara, you and your people have fought with honor. That is why I offer you something we rarely give: a choice. One ship will be allowed to survive. One ship will carry a message back to the Assembly, back to the Kronar Dominion, back to everyone who thinks the old warnings were merely stories. Choose which ship lives, the rest will die here." Vrechtel struggled to stand. "Let me go. I am the ambassador." "No," Harper said. "Not you, ambassador. You started this war with your arrogance. You will witness what arrogance costs. Captain Shelvara, you tried to prevent this disaster. You understood the danger. You will be our messenger." Shelvara looked at the faces of her bridge crew, people who had followed her into catastrophe, who deserved better than to die in a war that should never have been fought. All ships, she transmitted, evacuate to the destroyer Swift Victory. Transfer all critical personnel and wounded. You have 10 minutes. The evacuation was chaos and sacrifice. Nearly 5,000 kronar crammed into a vessel designed for 300. When the time elapsed, Swift Victory separated from the fleet, moving through a narrow corridor in the human formation. On the endless conquest, Vrechtel and the remaining Kronar waited for death. But first, Harper appeared one final time. Ambassador Vrechtel, before you die, understand this. 900 years ago, the Assembly demanded we disarm. They said our weapons were too brutal, our methods too cruel. They said we needed to be civilized according to their standards. We refused, and they attacked us. The screen split, showing archived footage of human cities burning under alien weapons, primitive human ships ramming into enemy dreadnoughts because they had no other weapons remaining, entire populations mobilized for total war. They thought they were teaching us a lesson, Harper continued. They thought we would surrender when we understood their superiority, but humans do not surrender. We adapt, we evolve, we learn, and most importantly, we remember. The footage showed human technology advancing at impossible speed, weapons being developed that transformed warfare itself, defensive strategies that turned numerical superiority into irrelevance. We spent 900 years alone, Harper said. While you explored the galaxy, we explored the limits of military science. While you made peace among yourselves, we made ourselves into the perfect weapon. Not because we wanted to conquer, but because we wanted to ensure no one could ever conquer us. Please, Vrechtel whispered. We understand. We were wrong. You destroyed a memorial, Harper said, her voice harder than steel. 400 people rested there. You turned their grave into a demonstration of power. For that alone, you deserve what comes next. But this is not about vengeance. This is about sending a message that will echo across the galaxy for another 900 years. She leaned forward, and her final words carried the weight of absolute certainty. No species enters human space. That is the rule. That has always been the rule. You came here thinking you could change it. Now you will die proving you were wrong. The transmission ended. The human fleet fired everything simultaneously. Ambassador Vrechtel's last thought, as the endless conquest disintegrated around him, was of Captain Shelvara on the Swift Victory, watching from a distance as she jumped to faster-than-light speed. She was weeping, he realized. Weeping for all of them, for the waste of it, for the terrible lesson that would now be carved into history with the lives of 5,000 warriors who had simply followed their leaders into catastrophe. Then there was light, and heat, and nothing. Captain Shelvara stood before the Convergence Assembly 3 days later, having traveled at maximum speed from human space to deliver her message. The holographic display showed the final moments of the Kronar fleet, 249 ships reduced to expanding clouds of debris in less than 12 hours. This, she said quietly, her voice carrying to all 912 species, is what happens when you ignore the warnings. This is what happens when you believe yourself strong enough, smart enough, different enough to challenge the boundaries. The humans were not surprised. They were not frightened. They were ready. They have spent 900 years preparing for exactly this moment. Elder Witness Thalmara's crystalline form pulsed with dim light. Captain Shelvara, you have our profound sympathies, but we must understand, did Ambassador Vrechtel provoke this response? He destroyed a memorial, Shelvara said, a platform where 400 humans died 3 centuries ago. He used it as a demonstration of our superior weapons. In human eyes, we desecrated a grave. We declared war. She looked around the chamber, meeting the gazes of species both young and ancient. I watched human ships move in ways that should be impossible. I watched them fire weapons our shields could not stop. I watched them take control of our computers as if our security meant nothing. And I watched them do all of this while using perhaps a tenth of their available forces. They had nearly 5,000 ships surrounding us. They could have destroyed our entire fleet in minutes. Instead, they took hours, methodically dismantling us, showing us that we never had a chance. The Assembly debated for 3 days. War factions argued that allowing humans to destroy a fleet without response would make them appear weak. Peace factions argued that the Kronar had violated the treaty and suffered the expected consequences. Neutral species tried to find middle ground that satisfied no one. On the 3rd day, something unexpected occurred. A transmission came from the edge of human space, broadcast simultaneously to every member of the Assembly. Commander Rachel Harper appeared on screens across the galaxy. People of the Convergence Assembly, she began, 900 years ago, our species signed the Treaty of Saturn. We agreed to isolate ourselves, to remain in our designated territory, and to never interfere with galactic affairs. In exchange, you agreed never to enter our space, never to attack us, and to leave us in peace. She paused, her expression grave. The Cronar Dominion broke that treaty. They entered our space with a military fleet. They made threats. They fired weapons. They destroyed a memorial to our dead. By any standard of interstellar law, we were justified in defending ourselves. We did so. The result is what you have witnessed. The transmission showed the battle from human perspectives. Cronar ships firing first, the destroyed memorial, everything that had led to the human response. We do not seek conflict, Harper continued. We never did. 900 years ago, we asked only to be allowed our own way of life, our own methods, our own choices. The Assembly refused. They demanded we change to fit their ideals. We refused. War resulted. The treaty ended that war. She leaned forward. We will honor that treaty. We will remain in our space. We will not expand. We will not attack. We will not conquer, but we will defend ourselves against anyone who threatens us. The boundaries exist for your protection, not ours. Remember that. Her expression softened slightly. I know some of you are debating war. I know some believe you must respond to maintain honor or save face. I ask you not to make that mistake. We don't want to fight you. We don't want to kill you. We want only to be left alone. Give us that, and we give you peace. Force us to fight, and we give you annihilation. Choose wisely. The transmission showed Earth floating in space, beautiful and blue, surrounded by barely visible defensive platforms and thousands of ships. This is our home, Harper said softly. We will defend it with everything we have, everything we are, and everything we can become. Choose peace. Choose to honor the treaty, because the alternative benefits no one. The transmission ended. The Assembly vote was decisive. 731 species voted to reaffirm the Treaty of Saturn and strengthen the boundary protocols. 181 voted for war. The treaty would stand. Captain Shelvara did not return to the Cronar Dominion. She stayed, addressing the Assembly one final time. I will make sure this never happens again, she said. I will travel to every world, every species, every military academy, and I will tell them what I saw. I will make them understand that the warnings are not myths, the boundaries are not suggestions, and humans are not to be tested. Over the following decades, new protocols were established. The boundary around human space was reinforced with additional warning beacons. Every species was required to update their star charts with multiple layers of warnings. Most importantly, the full history of the unification campaign and the Cronar incident became mandatory study material for all military forces in the galaxy. Shelvara began her journey, traveling from world to world, showing the footage, sharing her testimony, ensuring the lesson would not fade with time. And always she ended with the same words. Humans are not evil. They are not monsters. They are survivors who will do anything to remain free. Respect that, and they will never threaten you. Challenge that, and they will destroy you. The choice is always yours. Choose wisely. The years became decades. The decades became centuries. The treaty held. The boundaries remained. And humanity continued their vigilant isolation, neither seeking to join the galaxy nor allowing the galaxy to join them. Separate but aware, isolated but engaged, proving that there were many paths to civilization and that sovereignty itself could be worth any price. For in the end, the galaxy learned what humanity had always known, that some boundaries exist not to cage the dangerous, but to protect the foolish from their own ambitions. And sometimes the greatest wisdom lies not in tearing down walls, but in respecting why they were built in the first place. The stars continued their ancient dance, indifferent to the struggles below, but among those stars, one species had carved a simple truth into the fabric of galactic civilization. Freedom defended absolutely is freedom preserved eternally. And so the watch continues.